Hello, BookTube. This is my second book review. This time, I'm reviewing Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. Although, as you can see here, I'm actually halfway through the two-book collection of the first two books in the series. The first book is Shadow of the Torturer, which you can see is over here, this one. The next one is called The Conciliator, and they're both in this omnibus edition. Now, I decided to start reviewing just the first book this time, as I want to set precedent for reviewing each book at a time in the series, even though it's a two-book set. And also because I kind of just was very eager to talk about it. There's a lot of things I want to say about it. It's one of the most interesting books I've ever read, I think, although I was disappointed in some respects. But I think that if I stick with this series and put a lot of effort, I think I can really enjoy this. So this is the first book in a series called The Book of the New Sun. And The Book of the New Sun was published from 1980 to 1983 by Gene Wolfe. And the idea is it follows the story of this young man named Severian. And he lives millions of years in the future, in which Earth is called Earth, but with a U instead of the EA. And in this society, which is actually based quite a lot off Tales of the Dying Earth, there's definitely a huge influence of that. In this society, it's based off of ancient Rome, and they're ruled by an autarch who rules with an iron fist and engages in military campaigns in foreign areas. And it's also mentioned a few times that the sun is dying, which is obviously also another nod to Jack Vance. But anyway, so the idea is that Severian, he's actually writing his memoirs because he's already become the autarch. And that's not a spoiler, that's just something that forms the context of the book and it's revealed early on. So he becomes the autarch by leading a revolution, presumably, against the, I can't say too much because I don't know too much, I don't want to spoil too much, against the autarch. And this all starts out when, as the apprentice to the Guild of Torturers, well, he becomes a journeyman, but he was apprenticed first, he is forced to be into exile because he falls in love with one of the prisoners at the guild. So when he realizes that she's going to be tortured for possibly the rest of her life, he gives her a knife, which is to commit suicide. This isn't really a spoiler, this is basically a part of the summary of the book. So I won't talk about the plot any more than that, but other than that, it caused him to go into exile, and from then on, his destiny is basically undertaken. So, I've actually heard this book is called The Dark Souls of Books. And people say that because it actually requires many, many rereads and lots of contextual understanding and lots of in-depth analysis of the text in order to understand what's going on. So, my interpretation is that basically this book has many interesting scenes that, to like someone reading it, make no sense whatsoever to the plot, and some would say are hard to understand. My idea is that basically I understand what's going on in any given moment, I think, pretty well, because like it's just these scenes from one another. Like even if they're complete craziness or these random stories, I understand what's going on. The difficulty though is I don't understand how they relate to the main plot, but I'm assuming based on what people tell me that they actually will eventually relate to the main plot. But again, this will probably improve in a reread. I have to see. Now the setting is very fascinating. It's a future world based off ancient Rome, which the only other time I saw that was from a series called Red Rising, which I don't normally read these books, but a young adult book my friend recommended me, and I thought they were pretty good. But now I'm thinking that, maybe that book wasn't that original, because obviously this setting did it first. The main thing, though, is that I think Gene Wolfe, he took the idea of having a book that's based on the experience of the narrator, because it's all written as his memoirs, like all the way to the maximum level. Like Severian does not actually like explain to people things that, like, if they're living in the world that Gene Wolfe has created, they would already know. Like, there's lots of terminology and words or constant random phrases and stuff that are thrown out there, and you're kind of just supposed to guess what they are based on contextual evidence. I had no problem doing this because, I just read Tales of the Dying Earth, and I loved it, and that's basically just like that. However, I think that this book has some shortcomings that I'm not sure, well, maybe they'll improve in a reread, or simply they're just bad. For one thing, I find it very bizarre so Gene Wolfe is a very strong Catholic, and apparently he's actually known for putting his religious faith in his works, which is something I normally object to, but I mean, if it's for artistic purposes, I have no problem with it. Like in this case, it seems to be pretty subtle, but apparently Severian is supposed to be like a Christ figure. I can't really go into detail about all the things about why, but I find it bizarre that as a Christ figure, and also for Gene Wolfe being a devout Christian writing this, that women are portrayed not only very weak roles, but their roles are almost always sexual. I think this book reminds me a lot, and I'm sure it was an influence on him, of Patrick Rothfuss's The Kingkiller Chronicles, which I read a very long time ago, so I don't know what opinions I have on it now exactly. I remember loving the first book and being very disappointed by the second book, and this one has a lot more symptoms of the second book. Now, It's a lot shorter than the second book, so there's not a whole lot happens in the plot, and I'm willing to forgive it for that. But the main thing about this book, and also the second book of the King Killer Chronicle, was that they had very poor portrayal of women. In the King Killer Chronicle, every woman in the story, or almost everyone at least, basically exists only to make Wolfe look good. They either love him, or he loves them, or they give him sex, or they give him money, or whatever. And it's very obnoxious. I remember reading someone's review about that, and he pointed out, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of it. It was actually very demeaning. Although I just liked it when I first read it, but now he really opened my eyes to it. This book has that. Not only does it have that, there are even sections of it in which Severian talks about what he views as the relationship between men and women. And they're very sexist, but I'm not sure if I should forgive those because, just an author trying to write his character, or if the author actually thought he was being beautiful and poetic or whatever. I don't know. So I'm not giving him points for that. It's very creepy and weird, and I just really demeans female characters. But the thing on this book is that everyone says this about it, and I don't think it's a spoiler either. I think it's important, and it's actually the main way in which I can enjoy the book and give the rating I did at the end was because Severian is an unreliable narrator. And you see, in one way, is stated outright. He actually mentions at one point, this isn't a spoiler, this is an important way to contextually read the book, that he is insane. He just casually mentions it. And it's an important part of the context of the book. So, because he's insane, we don't know if what he's recounting and his version of events are the actual version of the events that they occur in. Another aspect, and this is one people have noticed as they've read it, is that apparently people claim that Severian lies. And he says he deliberately goes off on tangents to distract the reader. He says things untruthfully. But that's another part of the book that he actually claims, and this is another contextual thing of the book that's just stated outright, is that Severian claims that he has a photographic memory. He's never forgotten a single detail about his life. And so that's why he can remember everything with perfect accuracy. I'm not going to lie, I kind of appreciate this compared to the King Killer Chronicle, because in the King Killer Chronicle, where I always thought it was really weird and unrealistic, that Wolfe would somehow have this really you would actually remember everything going on as a book, because he's literally dictating it to someone writing it down, and he remembers all these details all of a sudden. He's supposed to be a genius in that book, but even then I thought it was way too far-fetched. In this book, even though it gives the same idea, although he's writing it down rather than dictating it, it's not off the tip of his tongue, but I'm willing to forgive it in this book because it's actually set out right. He has a photographic memory. But since Severian doesn't lie and he's an unreliable narrator, maybe that's not true either. Maybe he doesn't actually know as much as he thinks he does. So there's a lot of strange mysticism. Also, it definitely feels like, and it actually should, so I really shouldn't count this as criticism, it feels like the first part of an actual book. It doesn't actually end in the most complete, self-contained way. It's fairly short, too. I think the first book is only 60 to 70,000 words, so I'm willing to forgive it for that, too. But the thing is that the whole series is written as one single memoir. And while there are 4 dividing points, I think that that's an important way in which the book should be read. So maybe I'm not even doing a good job reading the first book before I read the other ones, although I was kind of impatient to get my thoughts out about this. But it is an interesting point. They're definitely written as being a single book, and it's definitely an important way in which it's written. Also, another thing, this is more of a personal matter, but I still feel like I should count this as a rating. There's very little humor. There's I can think of maybe 1 or 2 jokes on the top of my head that came from this book, but apart from that, there's basically none. I don't have a problem with a serious book per se, it's just that in my opinion, I think that science fiction and fantasy and fiction stories in general actually should have humor. Just for me, the way I see it, if you have a work that's only tragic and serious and you're not having any comic undertones or comic relief, then you're doing yourself a disservice. The way I see it, comedy and tragedy, they exist the best when there's at least a bit of both in each. A work of comedy can't be a truly great work unless there's some tragedy involved, at least in my view. And a work of a tragedy can't be a truly great work unless there's some comedy involved. And this book had very little about that. Just as the characters in this book were also not very likable or interesting, to be honest. So Severian is, he's a narrator and he has some interesting traits, but I found that, as I said, the female characters are awful in this book. They're basically just objects. Again, I might be able to forget it for now. I'm not sure about it in the future or not. But for Severian and the other characters, I didn't think they actually have very interesting personalities. They don't really talk or engage in dialogue or interesting quirks or anything. Really, if they have an interesting facet, it's usually that they're insane or that they're powerful or anything like that. And those aren't really interesting in themselves. So there's no real human attachment to give to the characters. Anyway, going back to the positives, like I said before, the descriptive language is marvelous in this book. I had a perfect picture of everything going on at a time. Even when the scenes themselves had seemingly no relation whatsoever to the plot, I did actually enjoy reading them anyway, because they're so marvelously written. And some scenes in which there are some scenes that weren't related to the plot. I honestly didn't really like, but there were also scenes that weren't related to the plot that I really did enjoy just for the descriptive content of those scenes, and I'm definitely a fan of that. So anyway, overall, definitely reminds me a lot of the Kingkiller Chronicle in both good and bad ways, and I consider this rating tentative because I might revise this in the future depending on how I read the other books and what context they give this book. But my final rating is a 3 out of 5 stars. Anyway, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because everyone YouTuber always says at the end of their videos, because, we gotta appease the algorithm gods, and thank you very much for watching. Bye.